Hello everyone. I've neglected my YouTube account for 5 years, and I wanted to get back into the habit of reading the stories that I started doing on there and need to finish. First, I'm going to start with the erotic stories that I've had published in books and try and promote them. And then I'm going to go on to the non-erotic stuff that I've done, the memoir that I did, a bunch of kind of humorous essays that I did called Aqua Baby Speak in Swahili a couple of years ago. I'll start reading them out as well. But to start with, I'm going to start with, it was pretty much the first story I had published. It was in a book called Seriously Sexy One, by Excite Books through Accent Press, and there's some really good authors in here with some really good stories. Some people might have heard of: Beverly Langlard, Emily Doubley, Jeremy Edwards, Penelope Friday. My story was called Italian Island Liaison, and I wrote it on the beach in Sardinia when I went there with my ex-wife. And that's about it, right? It's towards the end of the book, and you can. I will put a link, Amazon link, underneath to so you can get the book if you want to. Okay, Italian Island Liaison. You smell of sex, my husband challenged me. He guided me into my seat in the restaurant and kissed the top of my head, which I suspect is how he sensed the presence of the 19-year-old I fucked on the beach a few hours earlier. That would be because I had sex, darling, I offered. I pondered over the entrees on the menu. Enjoy? He countered, flicking through the wine list. Very much, I informed him. The sea bass sounds delicious. We've been married for 20 years. We were at college together. No kids to speak of. We both had our careers in the city. The usual story. Not that either of us have ever taken exception to it. In fact, we love the freedom to be able to jump on a plane and go see foreign lands. The reason why he wasn't either screaming at me and making a scene or walking off like most rational partners would do at this sort of admission is because we had come to a mutual agreement some time ago. The sex had died down after the first 10 years. We became more like flatmates in one room, and we came to an understanding that we were both attracted to others. The turning point was when I found some illicit texts on his phone illuminating certain attributes down below and alluding to certain desires my husband has from someone called Tia. When he expected the slap around the face, I hit him with something better. Okay then, you want to play it like that? I'll fuck who I want to then. He laughed nervously and called my bluff. 2 nights later, I went to Paper, it's a club in London, with some friends from work and brought a guy home with me. Oh, this is my husband, I introduced the rather surprised 25-year-old Foxton's agent with a flick of my wrist. Well, I was wearing my wedding ring. Where did he think I was taking him when I grabbed him by the crotch on the dance floor and whispered up into his ear that I was dying to take him home? If he doesn't do the ring check like 90% of other guys do, that's not my fault, is it? To my husband's credit, the first thing he did was offer him a beer and point him towards the Durex, to the utter bemusement of the tanned, if slightly portly, notch on my about-to-be-liberated bedpost. I took him into our marital bed and let him screaming rather vigorously, much to what I am sure was a little secret envy and frustration from downstairs. Otherwise, I hadn't really cashed in on the open relationship card since I caught him, and that was 2 years ago, so I think my actions on the beach were entirely justified that evening, especially as he has 2 girls on the go back home, who he sees most weeks. When I heard he had had his first threesome with one of them and her husband, I figured that it was high time to start cashing checks of my own and have some fun. I could have easily joined them. In fact, he asked me, twice. They wanted to swap with us, but I explained that I was ready to sow my wild oats a little further, and it was something I was intended to do entirely on my own. Plus, the whole idea of wife swapping seemed so passé, something people did in the 70s, not to mention the threat of disease and the rest of it. Our summer holiday this year gave me the perfect opportunity to catch him completely unawares. When he told me that we were going to Sardinia, I made a special effort to search out the nudist beaches, and after one false start when we stripped off and a young German family camped out next to us fully clothed, We sauntered away in full naked glory and found our spot to make love under the Mediterranean sun. This was in full view of a group of people, something he had always wanted to do. He happily said as he grunted away in my ear and pounded my splayed torso with his hips. It was after a heady day of sunbathing, and we were both glad of the release. A nude swim and further shagging followed in the clear, shingled waters. On the day of my misdemeanour, though, we had a wonderful lunch and attempted to get a tan. After a while, he was itching to get back to the hotel and book a tour to the nearby historic walled city for the following day. I told him that I was nicely settled and I had every intention of getting through some more of the latest issue of Vanity Fair, specifically the interview with Angelina Jolie that I had been enjoying. "I'll be fine here. I'll meet you back in the room in a couple of hours." He collected himself and made the mutterings of someone who was going to miss an opportunity if he didn't go. I both humoured and nurtured his idea until he felt satisfied leaving me. In fact, I had to insist. "I'll follow you up soon, don't worry." I had absolutely no intention of doing that at all. There was no way that I was going to lay around in the nude with all this opportunity on offer. Actually, there was a rather suspicious look on his face when he realised that he was about to wander away from his naked wife, and that I had perhaps intentions of my own. What he didn't know was that I was definitely going out to find some young stud and have him take me over one of the rocks. As soon as he was out of sight and heading up the sand back towards the hotel, I put the marker back in my novel and organised myself straight away. I rubbed coconut lotion on my shoulders and the globes of my chest and tied up my sarong around my exposed bottom half. I put my book in my hold-all and draped the towel over it. With that, I went in search of sex. More than anything, actually, I thought it would be a nice chance to explore alone, to collect my thoughts and have a nice topless stroll, something I hadn't done by myself for a long time. Earlier, I hadn't noticed a little cove divided from the main stretch of the beach by some secluded rocks, so I decided to take a walk over to see what I could find. I found more secluded spots, quiet hidden nooks, and by means of climbing a little, one where a young man lay in his speedos. He had a smooth, taut body and curly brown hair that looked like a young child's dance. Instantly I felt a pang inside of me. I had found my suitor. As I stepped down from the rocks and onto the sand near where he was sunbathing, I caught him looking up at me and admiring my exposed boobs. I noticed that the book he was reading was in French, so I struck up a conversation. "Bonjour, monsieur. Ça va bien ici?" "Oui, merci," he replied. I continued in French, and I will spare you the translation, much to his surprise. He could clearly tell by my boldness, lack of tan and accent that I wasn't French. A good education at top school in Montreal had suddenly paid off, I thought. He seemed quite happy to continue talking to me in his native tongue. We momentarily ran short of conversation, my ignorance I'm sure, so I turned towards the sea and walked to the water's edge. I kicked the water playfully and waded up to my ankles. I stretched and looked back up the shore where I had come from. I untied the sarong and stuffed it into my bag, turning round to ensure the young guy got an eyeful of what was on offer. I took a look back towards him from behind my shades and noticed a nice growth in his speedos. I waded out of the water and back onto the sand. I stopped beside him, about 20 feet away, and threw down my towel. I sat upon it and dried my toes with one of the corners. I brushed off the droplets of water and excess sand, and out of the corner of my eye saw him slip a hand into his pants to adjust himself. I asked him very cheekily if it wouldn't be easier if he just took them off. "Il serait plus facile si vous les enlevez." "Je veux faire, si vous n'avez pas l'objection," he said. He said he would if I didn't mind. Come on, I thought. Why are you shy? I'm already naked here. I got to my feet and skipped over the gap between the towels and knelt next to him. Oh Jesus, let me just offer to do it myself and kick the elephant off the beach and get on with it. "Bougez-le, ne prendez vos pour vous." He grinned and went crimson. I looked around to spare his blushes a little and peeled his speedos down over his bum to reveal a waxed, tanned groin. It certainly looked as if he wasn't first to some naked sun worship himself, so I guess he was just being modest with me. I ran my index finger up his length and tickled his balls. I didn't want to dive straight in, so I lay to his side. He rubbed one of my breasts and tweaked my nipples, which I just love. I urged him to tweak them harder. He obliged, and I let out a little moan. The fresh sea air and growing desire were doing wonders for my sinuses, and I already could sense a crescendo building up inside me. I grabbed his shaft with both hands and immediately sank my mouth down as he gasped something I shouldn't translate. Sitting on his elbows and leaning back on the towel, I pushed him back flat with my hand and brought my rear end round to straddle his face. He tasted lovely, and I've never sucked a man off with so little hair. I made full use of this and licked round the whole area, which I was used to being covered in thick curls. He was sea fresh from a swim, and his balls were musky with a hint of some sort of deodorant. I actually found it quite pleasant, licking the shaft and his groin. I licked further between his legs and round his arsehole, just like my husband likes. He grunted with his tongue in my hole, and I heard him laugh. He certainly knew his way round a pussy with his mouth. He nibbled and sucked on my labia and darted his tongue in and out like a seasoned veteran, and soon he had me bucking wildly. He even played with my arsehole. Honestly, girls, he hadn't even told me his name, the cheek of it. I wasn't complaining, though. He pushed back the soft brown hair getting in his way and pushed his tongue into my hole. His ferocity at times showed lack of timing, but I was quite happy regardless, especially pumping his erection in my fist and pushing him down with the palm of my hand on his chest. I didn't want to give this boy a heart attack or overwhelm him with excitement, so I quickly got off, reached in my purse and tore a condom from its wrapper. I popped it into my mouth and went down on him, slipping it on with my teeth. The sun was going down and turning a lovely orange colour, and dipping behind the rocks as I pulled up my friend by the hand and led him over to the ridge and a collection of rocks. I wondered whether I should ask his name at this point. Surely it was far too salacious of me to have him take me without knowing who he was. Fuck it, I thought. This is my moment of sin, my hour of liberated fun. I don't need to know. I bent over one of the rocks at waist height. I was offering it to him, and he started to fumble and play with his cock. The condom had killed him. I turned around, dropped to my knees, getting him hard once again. Take two, and he was away. He eased in and grabbed the extra flesh on my hips and ground away nicely. He kept going for a good 15 minutes until I moved back and prompted him towards the tower. He placed me on my back and climbed on top. We momentarily stopped, and he pulled a towel over us as he heard the rustling of footsteps above us. I sensed that he was attempting to protect my modesty. I urged him to carry on. I wasn't concerned who saw us at this point, and neither, I guess, was he, kneeling on his calves and taking a heel in each hand, exposing my front to those who might be having a little peek. When we had finished, he tossed the soil rubber behind him, looking like the cat that had got the cream, and I tutted at him. He got up and obediently retrieved it. He crumpled the soiled, sandy material in his fist and rolled back to me. We looked up at the trees and sensed the movement of the people nearby. I actually really felt like saying and having a hug, but I didn't want to send out the robbed signals, so I collected my things and put my shades on. I said goodbye and headed back up the beach, leaving my conquest satisfied and curled up with his book on the sand we had warmed, no doubt hoping that someone else would soon join him. Yeah. Sorry that I'm out of practice with the whole reading thing. There you go, that's Italian Island Liaison from Seriously Sexy 1. And that you're probably best going on Amazon if you want a copy of this. It's from 2008. And that's about it. So until next time, I will be reading Seriously Sexy 2 and 3. And then going on to some other non-erotic things. So if you like this and want to see more, go down there and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you.